boss of it, believe it or not. You kind of conceptualise much of it. People were using the ideas that we were promoting via digital networks in Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, the States, the Middle East, throughout Europe, across England. So I'm trying to think of the one that was most successful. We managed to get games and games-based learning explicitly mentioned as a valid outcome in the new curriculum for excellence in Scotland. And I think that was really successful, and we were also name-checked or referenced in the Hope Livingston Review as an example of what England should look towards in terms of promoting the kind of digital literate skills-based education that's now happening in England.
Okay. I'm going to go on to ask some more questions about the lasting impact, but in the meantime, I'm guessing that you had a lot of people who you talked to or who came to the consularium who were cynical about the concept.
Well, to some extent, yes. But I think that people were, but I can actually count on one hand all the people I met, people who just were not prepared to go with it. They just were not having it. Actually, I could count on 3 fingers. I remember it. I can remember them. And when I first proposed this the way it works in Scotland at the time, right, there was a group called SICDOG, SICTDG, this is the Scottish ICT Development Group. And it's a representative from each local authority, the 32 local authorities, who is responsible for ICT in education. And they have a meeting every 4 months. They used to back in 2006. And I was given 15 minutes of their time to present my new endeavours at the national agency about games and learning. And it was met with some derision, and there was a bit of heckling and laughing at what I was talking about. And is this what we're wasting taxpayers' money on? And, this kind of idea. However, I got a number of people who came on board. I got 5 local authorities who immediately came on board with this note of interest. And the 3 local authorities that were having a giggle and a laugh, they eventually came on board and became unbelievable advocates of that practice. And so, continuing with the arguments, continuing to show effective practice, allowed people to then look at it and see there's something in this. And so, we were really successful in changing mindsets about this. And as I said, I think you'll find that the idea of using games and games design is something that's become mainstream across schools throughout the UK, and I think that we were significantly at the heart of that change.
And how did parents feel about it?
Parents have got that kind of culturally transmitted view of education that it has to be serious. And what's this fun nonsense? You don't go to school to have fun, and games, that's what I tell them to get off when they're in the house. This kind of idea. So there were a number of occasions. There was one significant one when we had Nintendo starting up in Aberdeenshire. And in the school there was a posse of parents who heard that when primary 1 they were going to be playing a Nintendo DS game. And what happened was they kind of caused a lot of, how can I put it, dissension in the playground, and they weren't happy about this. So they had a delegation to the head teacher to ask to stop it before it began. But the head teacher and the teacher managed to convince the parents, look, there's a rationale here, this is what we think is going to happen, and to their credit, the parents backed down. I went back to see it 6 weeks later, and I ended up interviewing 4 parents. I still have the video, and their attitude to it was a total and utter reversal. They could not believe the impact that this had had on their children, particularly some of the boys who were not interested in school, did not talk about what happened at school, but when Nintendogs came along, all they would do was talk about what they did at school that day with their learning, because it was embedded in the culture of this idea of using the game Nintendogs in a group of 3. They all looked after their dog, and then everything was linked to the dog. The home corner was the vets. They got a visit from the dog warden. They started the dog walking business. They made animations with their little cuddly toys, and the learning was bursting at the seams with vibrancy and life. And I could tell you a number of occasions when I've met parents. Mario Kart was another one. It's generally in the early years where we were having huge success with parents and grannies and granddads could not believe the impact that this was having on children's attitudes to school and to learning. So parents were really one round, and I think that at the time, remember, Mark, you need to remember, this was 2006, 2007, 2008, that Nintendo changed a lot how people viewed games. They made the Nintendo Wii
Yes,
DS at that time.
right, yeah.
People started buying these consoles and would have them in the living room. They were playing them at social events, and so the idea of the game in the computer console was the land of the geek. They had in their bedroom with the curtains drawn, speaking to each other on mics, was blown out of the water. It became mainstream. It became something that wasn't frightening anymore. And so it was the perfect time for us to do these things, and it worked such a treat.
Okay, now that's marvellous. Am I getting a sense that, were you kind of suggesting there that it has, in your experience, worked better for younger age groups and more for boys than girls?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I think that it's significant that some. I wouldn't say that was the case, and our research didn't show that. The boys and the girls. But I think you've got some boys are more predisposed to not taking school so seriously.
Yeah, I'm asking out of curiosity, not to try and catch you out. This isn't a gendered question to catch you out. I'm just curious. I'd presumed, for the reasons that you're just giving, that yeah, it's a cultural thing that it would get through to boys more so, perhaps. But I'm interested by the idea that it might be better for younger ones.
Well, but it was some of the parents who fed back to us and the teachers talked about a lot of things that happened to boys. But we found that there was no sense of girls not buying into this and willingly being involved. They were as lost in it as the boys. And our research, particularly Dr. Kawashima, didn't show any difference in gender in terms of the impact that it had on learning. So I wouldn't say that was definitely the case, although we have had anecdotal evidence of parents talking about particular impact on boys who were having issues at school with their behaviour and their attitude to learning.
So it's more about buy-in.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great. And obviously we've touched on there a couple of things that children, parents at school and some of the local authorities you dealt with had a very negative starting point for this project. Why do you think there is sort of like a hostile, is it fair to think there is a hostile media climate around this? And if so, why do you think it is?
Well, remember, this is 2015, right? Things have moved on a bit here, and I think that we've been through so many changes that the only time, you wouldn't believe this, right, but I even had the Daily Mail etc. giving favourable reports about the research I was doing. So I've got the clippings, right, of all this stuff. You wouldn't believe it, Matt. The only time that we had an issue with the project we were doing in Scotland was when the recession hit, in 2008, 2009, was it? 2009. Yeah. Remember the banks crashed?
Yes, indeed.
And it was the campaign for real education, those clowns who just are wheeled out to show some antediluvian vision of what education should be. Don't quote me on that.
No, it's okay.
But they were asked, and they got, we can't afford pencils and paper, and yet we're investing money in Nintendo DS's. That was the only time we got something that was less than complimentary in the work we were doing, because we had evidence. Unlike what they did with spending millions upon millions on interactive whiteboards, we were attempting to offer an evidence base to help schools inform their digital purchases. What would you spend your money on? What are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck from? So, if I was arguing, if you buy a class set in Nintendo DS, you can share it throughout the school with different kind of games, rather than having a static whiteboard that allows a teacher to perpetuate a delivery methodology. So these kind of things, the kind of points we were trying to get people to think about.
Okay.
Did not answer your question.
No, that's okay. No, I'm just trying to discuss the issues around it. But it's kind of interesting. So if with all the support that you got from pretty much every corner, you're saying, which I can well believe, given the evidence. I've had a look at some of the stuff that's been written about this that still extant, as you say, some of it's been removed, and it's fascinating. So given all the success and given all the achievements and the positive praise that you got, why was it shut down? Do you know? Is it just a lack of money run out, or?
Well, what happened was you'll see in my blog post about Cheerio to the Consularium. Did you see that one?
I did indeed, yes.
Right. I name-checked a guy called Laurie O'Donnell, who was the head of digital learning at the time of Learning and Teaching Scotland. And he was very kind of creative, forward-thinking. He used to be my boss when I worked in Dundee. And I think he liked my kind of, how can you put it, left-field approach, right? And he loved the practice that we've done in the past. And when he saw what I was doing at university, etc., I think I almost like kind of maybe inspired him to think about putting this in the first place. But anyway, Laurie had the vision to drive it, and he had the ear of the the people who ran that organisation at the time to go with it. So anyway, he left towards the end of 2008, and a new boss came over, took over what I did, but by this time we were growing, and I ended up with 4 people in my team, and it was really, we were driving this. It was just tremendous. However, it started to wane, and in 2011, after a hugely successful learning festival in Scotland, where we had the National Computer Games Design Competition, way before BAFTA did it, way before they were doing it in England, we had schools, primary and secondary schools, making their own computer games in 2010. And they were amazing. Now, in 2011, it was decided by the person who then became the head of innovation at Learning Decent Scotland that was all getting cut. There was no games-based learning on the agenda, no games design. It was just cut. And there was no interest in it from them. Then in 2011, Education Scotland was formed, LTS was closed, they merged with the Inspectorate, which is your Ofsted, and they formed a new body called Education Scotland. They moved to new premises, my centre was shut down, all my staff were sent back to school from their secondments, and my budget was stopped. And there was never a discussion with me as to what the strategic reasons for that were. So I was left in the dark and attempted for the next couple of years to continue to fight for the case of what we were doing, to try and help them realise what we had built and what we were losing. However, I had to admit defeat in the end, and it died. And recently they've just deleted all content from their website of the evidence that we did. All that money, that taxpayers' money, but all that rich narrative that drove much of that games-based learning movement is now lost. It's gone. They've deleted it.
Why do you think this is? Why do you think it was shut down and the stuff's gone? Is it a political decision?
I think the culture that took over, because it was the Inspectorate that merged with LTS, but they were the dominant culture.
The Ofsted culture, you mean?
Yeah, so the Ofsted culture. So, and I don't mean to malign these people, because there's no doubt brilliant, talented people in the Inspectorate, but they weren't interested in this anymore. And I'm still unclear as to why this decision was taken. I couldn't understand it. People like Jeff Mulligan came up from Nesta to try and partner us on new events, etc., taking things forward, but it just didn't go off the ground. And what I did do was I ran in order to keep the momentum going after I lost all my team. We set up a thing called the Consularium CPD Consularium, which meant that in our national intranet for teachers and pupils, I created a group that teachers could join, and if they joined, they had access to my inventory of equipment, because I had it covered with about 260 assets.
Yes, I remember reading about that.
And I would loan that out to teachers who then had to undertake to write our wiki about their development practice and what their experience was in using it. So to try and maintain that culture of collegiate sharing and exploration in this domain. However, I wasn't getting any more money to refresh the kit, and people were still asking for it, and I don't know if it's become a thorn in their side, but I think in shutting it down, they're hopefully going to try and put that bit of their history to bed.
Right.
I'm very disappointed in it, and I don't want to come across as some kind of moody, huffy guy that's got a chip on his shoulder. I think there are severe questions about their vision, values and judgment from the national organisation to make a decision that would allow them to delete such rich, significant content from their digital estate.
Well, I don't think that comes across as mean at all when you've got evidence-based results there that it was so successful and when they were so positive.
And supported by the academically rigorous published research.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. Unquestionably, this isn't some sort of this isn't edge case social science where there's question marks over the methodology or anything. I've read some of this stuff and it seems pretty concrete, really. You would have thought that given the increasing Ofsted culture towards statistics, a numbers-driven and evidence-based result, you would have thought they would be keen to